If you have been enjoying listening to the stories of entrepreneurs across Edinburgh, then why not subscribe? If you're on YouTube, you can hit the red button down below and hit the bell to get notifications. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then subscribe to the podcast. We hope you enjoy the show. Michelle, Ashley, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. Great to have you. So give us, who are you? Well, we've got a little clue, but tell us.
Well, I'm Michelle Phillips, and I'm the owner of Mimis Bakehouse, Edinburgh.
And I'm Ashley Harley. This is my mum. So I'm part of the family, the next generation in Mimi's Bakehouse. So run the business and look after the 6 shops and 100 staff that we have. Wow,
crazy, eh?
Yeah.
What an operation.
Yeah.
And my wife loves Mimi's. We're always there. She works up at the high school over at Stockbridge, so she's always just down the way. Oh, did you? There you go. So she'll often on Fridays, they'll come on down. She'll bring some home. So big fan. So it's great to have you here and hear a little bit more of the story. So so let's go back to the beginning, and you can go back as far as you like. But how did this all start?
I think you should start from the 80s, no?
The 80s. Oh, wow.
That's why I always say it starts.
You think?
From Bruins.
Well, me and my husband both met back in the 80s, and we were both working in a restaurant in Clark Street in Edinburgh. It was a Scottish kind of bistro type restaurant that we ran at the time. And we worked for a chap that got himself into difficulties in this restaurant. And we ended up scraping the money together, and we ended up buying it off him at the time after a couple of years. We ran that restaurant for 10 years in the south side of Edinburgh, which we loved. He was a chef. He came from the Café Royal in Edinburgh. I'd been a trained chef at the Café Royal, so he was the chef and I run front of house. And we absolutely loved it. We worked all the hours God sends. And absolutely loved it. And then we decided to start a family, and we thought, right, we need to sell the restaurant because it's not conducive with family life.
We came along.
Yeah, well, not quite at that point, but we decided to sell the restaurant. My husband decided he got a couple of taxis, and he decided to run a little taxi business that he did for a number of years, and I kind of took 5 years out to bring up the children. So I had 3 children within 5 years, 85 to 90. And then as soon as the youngest went off to nursery, full-time nursery at that point, I decided to get back into the workplace and started off in school meals. And I worked in school meals for 10 years. And I absolutely loved it. I went from being assistant cook right up to running different school kitchens, up to then becoming a field supervisor and going round inspecting some of the schools' kitchens, checking that they were all up to scratch, providing the 4 weekly menus for the schools, that kind of thing. And I absolutely loved it. And it just fitted in with my lifestyle at the time, which meant that I could have time off for the children and I was able to work. It was perfect. Then I left there because a hotel that I was doing some part-time work at the time asked me to go and work for them. This little hotel in the south side of Edinburgh wanted to set up a restaurant. So they said, come and work for us. And they kept going on at me. And I thought, right, I'm going to go. I'm going to do this. So I left the council and went off to work in this little restaurant for 5 years. And I loved it. They just gave me carte blanche to do what I wanted. And it was nice. I got lots of experience working there. Did that for 5 years, then had to have a big back operation. And thought, right, I left there, had my back operation, got better, and then decided, right, I'm out there again. What am I going to do? So then a job came up, and it was a place called Loopy Lorna's in Morningside.
It rings a bell.
Yeah,
it rings a bell.
People have heard of that.
Yeah. So they were looking for somebody at the time. I didn't know what the company was called. They were just looking for a baker. So I went along for this job. I had to take along some baked goods. Took the baked goods along, and the owner was blown away. She thought this was great, and I got the job. And then she told me where it was, and it was in Loopy Lorna's in Morningside, where I used to go back in the early 80s. I used to go, there was a place called Sherry's then, that I absolutely loved. It was this little cafe. And I used to sit there thinking, this is my dream cafe. And I couldn't believe that this was the place that I was actually going to work. It was absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. So I ended up working there for, I think, 4 years. I think I worked there. So I set it all up with the owner at the time. She wasn't really so much hands-on in the actual business itself. She was more behind the scenes. And it just took off. It just went crazy, and the place was packed out. We won awards. We won Casual Dining Chef of the Year. It was just amazing. And then by that time, my husband realised that we had something. You know, I had something that I could take out there. So we decided to set up Mimis. So we worked on it for a couple of years, getting everything together and making sure that we had the branding right, and we wanted to have everything spot on before we opened. It took a while to find the premises, and we found our premises down at Leith, which was a surprise to us because we never expected to be down there. We'd originally been looking city centre. But surprisingly, we went down one day to the shore, and as we were kind of walking about, we came across this restaurant that had been lying there, had been abandoned, and we went in and had a look. We thought, this is perfect spot. And that day when we were in looking at it, everybody kept coming up to us and saying, don't open in there, don't go in there. It's always been a disaster. A chap round the corner says, make sure you get some bread and milk in because you'll not sell anything else. And people at the bus stop are always looking for bread and milk. And I thought, oh, God.
Great advice.
My best friend says, I think you're making a big mistake. Do not open. Do not do that. I think it's because she's from Leith and she didn't think it's a great idea. My dad said to me, really, it's not a good idea. But I opened.
And out of interest, what had you seen in it that other people didn't see?
Just a feeling. You walk into somewhere and you get a feeling right away that you know that this is where you need to be. I don't know what it is. I honestly do not know. It's just a feeling that you get. And we just knew we could make that work. And we did our homework. I mean, we checked out the area, who was in the area, what type of, clientele and whatever. So we did a lot of work on it. So we knew that the clientele was there. We knew we had customers that would use us, but we just had to know how to get them in there. And at that time, I was quite confident that I thought that we could with what we had to offer.
And so what are we talking here time-wise? What year are we in?
2010.
And so where are you at this point then, Ashley?
I was in Dubai.
Oh!
Different life, yeah. When I was 21, to match up that timetable, I left school at 17. Yeah. School wasn't for me, and I liked school, but I didn't want to do any hires or anything. So I went into an office environment at 17, and it was, I say, like, people want to go to uni, like, you don't have to go to uni, like, you just need life experience and, like, becoming an adult. So for me, working, it was a company called Halcro. It's now a company called Jacobs, big engineering firm on Abercrombie Place. My boss at the time, I'm still really good friends with, her name is Laura, and I'm Ashley, Laura Ashley. She created a role for me, and I'll never forget that, because she saw something in me and she created this role for me, and helping out her and a couple of her teams. And then that led me to Glasgow and then Dubai with that same company. So I was like an administrator, and then I moved into project planning, and then I actually ended up in construction event management, as you do. So met my husband, but by this point, Mimis was 2010, so I left Dubai 4 years later. Yeah, in 2014, because I knew that I wanted a piece of it. And I could also knew that I could bring something to the table. And like everyone, myself, my two sisters, my brother-in-law, like, we've all got such different skill sets, and I could see something that I could bring. I was like, I think I can help. I think I've got something that can help take Mimis along the way. So. And
so at this point, so 2010 is Mimis first, and then 4 years later you joined. So what's the business like at this stage then when Ashley comes in? It
was just Mimis at the Shore, which we opened in 2010, and then it doubled in size 2 years later. Yeah. And we took on the site next door, and then we just opened the Royal Mile, which was a small Mimis. So the second Mimis has existed. I think we had one van, 2 shops, and that was it. Right. Yeah. And it's now a bit bigger.
What was opening day like when you because there was a lot of criticism about the space. So what was?
Yeah, opening day was very quiet.
Oh no, they were right.
Yeah, did you get the bread and milk in?
Yeah.
It was the beast from the east. Basically, the weather was atrocious, and we were still staying up at the south side at this point. So even getting down, we couldn't get our car out. We had to get 2 buses to get down to the shore. It was just horrendous. There was nobody out in the streets, basically. And we were like, hello.
Do you remember how much you took? You always give me that figure.
We took £80
£80.
that day. £80. And we were thinking, I don't know if we're going to survive on £80. But hey, we'll have to take into account we're just opened, and we didn't do a big massive, it wasn't the times where there was massive social media at that time, and people were kind of relying on that. So we just thought, right, let's go away and let's go down to Pizza Express and splash that £80 and drown our sorrows. So that's what we did. We just went there and thought, tomorrow's another day. So off we went, and we just next day got better, and it got better and better from there, and it did build. It didn't take long to build, I have to say. It built pretty quickly.
But looking back, for me living so far away and looking at you, like, it was very impressive what they all did, because it was just the 5 of you and a couple of people at the weekend, and Mum used to say to them, like, well, how much do you need for your gas bill? How much do you, like, no one got paid. You just got like what you needed, like, because they had rent and mortgages and bills to pay, so everyone just got
you got your bill money, that was it.
Yeah.
Basically. All of us.
So that's a big sacrifice for that opening year. Well, I was swanning around.
Oh, it's a big sacrifice.
You were having a great time.
I wasn't there. But no, it was important to know that
just remember when you were over in Dubai and I was trying to get your Christmas present off to you. Obviously, I had to have enough time to get it, and I was running ragged. I was always everywhere, and my head was everywhere. And I had just missed the post office by, it was about 2 hours or something. I'd missed the post office, and I remember contacting you and saying, Ashley, you're going to get your parcel maybe a day late. And she was like, you were really upset.
Well, it was my first and only Christmas. It was my first and only Christmas ever away from home. It was the only one I've ever had since and before then, because it was so rubbish. Not because of that, just because I missed everybody so much. So
I
was
such
just
a
itching.
random mix of things as well.
I was just itching to get home.
I was just grabbing at anything.
Yeah.
What can I get?
So when you first opened, so you're a bakehouse, right?
Yeah.
You know, and you're very well known for your cakes and stuff, but I know that you do more than, it's not just that. So when you first opened, was that always the plan? What did the menu look like on day one?
The menu was quite big, actually. We did a lot of, because we were cooking, it was me and Gemma that were in there cooking. So my youngest daughter and myself. Gemma had worked with me at Loopy Lorna. She had came along to work with me then, and she was training under me at Loopy Lorna's, and basically came along, and we both did it together. And we've got a tiny kitchen at the shore. It's absolutely tiny. So we were baking and cooking in this little tiny kitchen, and I honestly don't know how we did it. But we did really hearty, we did like a hearty kind of stew type thing that we did, like a casserole thing, and we did sandwiches, quesadillas. We cooked a lot of things. And we had 2 ovens that we had to warm scones up in as well, so when people were coming there would be cakes in there. And scones and things, and then the staff would come in to warm a scone, and we were like, don't touch the oven, don't touch it. So there was all this going on all the time, so it was a really crazy place. But the menu was good. We'd done really well. We got a nice couple of really good reviews at the time, which was really
They were a bit
lovely.
of a turning point, weren't they, getting those reviews?
The turning point, getting the reviews.
So in what way was it a turning point then? What impact?
Just even looking from afar. So one of them was the Edinburgh Reporter, which I don't know if still exists. I think it does. But and then another one was someone called Gabby Souter, who's still a food critic to this day. And I think it's just like you can, because it was talking 14 years ago. So I think Facebook existed, but it was mainly for sharing pictures of your nights out with your pals. It wasn't really a tool as it is.
Joanna Blythman as well with the Herald.
Yes, Joanna Blythman. So yeah, it just, people knew about us. Like, how else did you think back, how else did you get yourself out there, really? You know, like you just opened and hoped. So yeah, it just made the message across, and people knew, oh, there's something new down there.
We didn't advertise.
No.
We've never advertised.
Is that right?
Ever.
No.
On any other form of advertising apart from social media from day one.
Yeah.
So you needed that, people to shout about you.
We needed.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you had these reviews, this was in the paper?
Yes. Yeah.
And so what happened then when paper kind of gets published? Do you see an immediate effect of footfall?
It's not like that
increasing?
weekend. Yeah, I wasn't there, but
Yeah.
Just
right.
queues down the shore and
queues out out the street, people waiting to come in with queues, which was one of the reasons why we ended up extending into the next the premises next door, which was our landlord at the time actually came to me and said, my daughter's been trying to get into your premises and she can't get in. So I think you should maybe think about taking next door, which she owned as well.
And do him,
So we thought, oh, well, maybe you got something there. So that's when we extended into the next room and made it double the size.
And was the plan always to grow this? You know, was it always, when you started it was like, okay, we got one shop, you know, this is amazing, it's great. Was it always, you know, Edinburgh domination? Was that the plan?
Originally we thought we would definitely grow it. It's, you know, we would do it, but we were kind of overwhelmed right at the very beginning because it just went crazy very, very quickly. And we were trying to catch our feet and just trying to work out how to do it. So it took a wee while, didn't it?
But a lot of recent growth has been quite organic because I think like the Shore came first, then Canongate, which was quite well thought out. You know, we knew we wanted a second shop, and then Corstorphine was a bit of a mission to get that, but we knew, again, we just saw like that neighbourhood energy that Leith has, where you go into, like we actually started to avoid the city centre because the city centre, you don't get that same community feel and people's kind of adopt you. So we saw Corstorphine, a lot of some of our family lives in Corstorphine, so we kind of saw that as the next step. And then after that, it was more people approaching us. So a lot of it kind of, there was some planning, and then actually some just like, oh, would you open a Mimi's here? And we're like, yeah, sure. So it was a bit of a mix of both, I think.
And how easy is it for you to then kind of find a location and then effectively drop the model in? I mean, have you got things?
Not that easy.
Right.
Well, Corstorphine's a funny one because Corstorphine, when we took it on, it was a kitchen showroom. Corstorphine's quite a recognisable site. It's on St John's Road. Yeah. It's got a little picket roof. And it only had class 1 consent, and we needed to change the consent within catering. You need to have certain consents to cook in a premises. And we got quite a lot of objections. I can't remember how many, but a lot. So we had to go to the planning board, and they were talking about us, and my brother-in-law put this information together about why we'd be really good for the area, job creation, and they all the committee just went, oh, hang on a minute. Sorry, why are we rejecting this? This should 100% be on the high street. This is amazing. And then they passed, and we were like, oh, passed. And then someone went, excuse me, sorry, we have to have a reason to pass it. And the guy just went, vibrancy. We were like, cool, we'll run with that. Vibrancy. So we were like, that's amazing. And then so from that moment on, we felt like we were adopted, and we're really near Craigmount High. Our cousin George lived there, so he was already signed up, and his friends were signed up, and we had employees already kind of ready to go. And then so that was it had its moments, but actually once you're in and once you get the community, and we've still got people that work for us. The manager of Corstorphine's been with us for 8 years, Craig, and he's amazing, and he's been with us since he was 15. So
wow.
The people that shop is outstanding. It's some of the customer service. Every shop's got its own unique little.
All locals that are working in it.
Yeah,
really, isn't it?
It's all locals.
So it really is part of the.
Yeah,
very much
and
so.
they got a review just recently of a woman that had just taken her son for his jabs, and he was really upset and he wouldn't calm down. And not one person there is a parent, and not that matters, but just they spotted something in this little boy, and they made such a fuss of him, and they wrote him on a plate, and they really looked after this little boy. And the woman emailed in and said, I don't know if they realised, but that was incredible customer service, and really to touch families' lives. Where you remember your 3-year-old's jabs, and they're quite traumatic when they're 3 coming at you with these things, and they keep coming at you again and again. And to come into our shop and to decide to spend some time there and to decide to send that email, I don't take that for granted. I think that's really special to be part of people's day.
Where does that come from then?
Oh, hopefully this woman, I think it comes from the top down.
My was always right from the start that Mimi's was you were to feel as you walked in the door, I like to feel when I walk in anywhere, I like to feel that warmth and that feel of a hug when you walk through the door. Yeah. So I want that feeling in all my businesses, that people walk in and they feel that we want them there, we want to look after them, and we want them to feel good.
Our pet hate is when you go in somewhere, and my dad talks about the Sales Prevention Society, so a society for the prevention of sales. So now that you know this, go into certain restaurants and cafes and you look at the staff, and you're like, wow, you do not want me to be here. And I get it. It's a hard industry to be in. So I understand not everyone's going to be cheery happy, but all the time. But my dad's like, wow, she's a member of the Sales Prevention Society, fully fledged up, paid member in full. Because you're like, we are in the business of making sales, of making people's days. So mum taught me, hire on personality. I can teach anyone to make a cappuccino. I could teach you to make a cappuccino now, but I can't teach you to be a nice person who's going to make that little boy's day, who's going to give the hug as they walk in the door, because that's why people keep coming back to Mimi's. We're not like physical hug in a minute. It's 2024. We don't physical hug, but we'll give you a hug if you're open to it. But, no, no physical hugs. But it's really special, and it comes from. It's always at the top of every management meeting or vision that I put together, a strategy. It's like warm, welcoming environment. Like otherwise, what's the point?
How do you then keep that? Because that's probably one of the problems of scale. Yeah. Right. You grow and you lose touch naturally, whether you want to or not. You gradually lose touch with the the warriors on the front line. So what have you implemented across the business to enable that to still be the case?
It's training, isn't it? You're training in your managers, and as Ashley says, about how we employ, we employ on personality and the warmth of a personality, and I think you have to be recognise that.
And just on that, then. When you come to recruitment, what does an interview look like? I mean, how do you know like that?
It's casual, chatty.
Right.
Like, don't ask them silly questions. Like, make them feel comfortable. Hi, how are you? What have you been up to today? Like, how did you get here? Like, just chit chat. And I've got a couple of killer questions you throw in, but in general, and a lot of, now I say to the managers, just phone them, give them a phone, have a chat on the phone. You like the sound of them, just get them into the shop for half an hour, and get them to make a coffee, get them to maybe serve a customer, just half an hour, and you'll get a vibe and an energy. And as I say, it doesn't matter if they can't make a latte or, the French toast or whatever, they will get it. It's just about that energy and vibe. You can get over the phone and you can get it in person within half an hour and go your gut, because you taught me the person, you'll know what they're like right away, and you could maybe change your mind, but you'll probably always go back to that original, what you thought of them. So I teach the managers now, hire on person, the smiliest, kindest, nicest, warmest person that comes in, hire them, because they will, is what will, and if you don't, you can see the difference that it makes. And we've had that before where you're like, they're not going to work because it's just not coming across. So it's really important.
And some energy.
Energy, you need a lot of energy, yes.
and so what are some of the things that you've done to bind the team together as well then? Because you've got a big team across the 6 sites plus. So
a couple of years after I joined, when I moved to Dubai, I was 21 years old, and I left my family home to Dubai, and I was working in an engineering firm of mainly men, and I felt really vulnerable and overwhelmed. And I actually, 2 things I did. One, I got set up on a blind date with a now really good friend, a girl called Claire, who was a friend of a friend, and said she'd just take me to the pub. So that was ideal. And the second thing I did was join a netball team. And I've never in my life played netball. And I just thought, I'll give it a go. And another 2 Claires that I met there, we're still really good friends 14 years later. More. And it was just similar to the work environment. Netball sport, it just binds people together, like your team, and you've got to go for that ball and you go for drinks after and stuff. So when I joined Mimi's and we'd grown from 1 to 3 shops quite quickly, I felt like there was a bit of disjointment between the teams and stuff, and actually a lot of shift swapping going on. And I thought, actually, I'm going to start a netball team. So we started a Mimi's netball team. And, again, still friends to this day with people. There's been girls that met at Mimi's that were on that netball team that were bridesmaids at each other's weddings. And it's all because we just bound together in this random thing that is netball. And we don't do it anymore. The company's a bit bigger, but we always talk about doing it again. And I think it was really important when the company was that size, just to find something. I think as you get bigger, it's harder, and there's different things we do now. But back then that was really, really key and really
What was really funny about that whole situation, when all these people becoming friends and bridesmaids of each other, when we were down in Betty's, we went down to Betty's in York. Me and the 3 girls had went down, and we were sitting having some afternoon tea in Betty's. And we looked over, and in another table opposite us were was it 5 of them?
3.
3.
They'd all met in Mimi's, and one lived in Edinburgh, one lived in York, and one lived in London.
And they'd all come together to meet, and they had met in Mimi's.
Really?
And they were all sitting there together having.
They were still in touch. Josie, Lindsay, and Aileen.
What's the chances of us all being there at the same time?
I know.
Yeah, so that's something.
But it was lovely to see that they're all friends, and that's what Mimi's done. It brought them together.
And we actually have our first Mimi's wedding in the summer. Ooh. So 2 employees that met at Mimi's. We've got lots of couples in Mimi's, but this was the first ever couple that met because they both worked at Mimi's, and now they're getting married in the summer. Olivia and Josie are getting married in the summer because of Mimi's. So that's amazing.
Are you doing their wedding cake?
Of course we are.
Can you imagine if you weren't.
They're actually getting married in Glasgow, and I met them, the girls, on Sunday, and they were like, yeah, it's a bit of a trek, and we don't normally deliver to Glasgow. We're like, for you, we'll deliver to Glasgow, of course. Brilliant. So, but they actually picked, the cakes they're picking is a cake table, and they're really old school cakes because they worked for us 8 years ago. So we're like, oh, we don't make that anymore. Oh, but we'll make it. We don't make that anymore, but yeah, we'll make it for you. It's fine. So yeah, really proud of that. Like, it's amazing. The relationships are...
Yeah, I mean, I actually had that in my previous business as well. We introduced 2 and they ended up getting married, which was crazy. And I never thought about it as it being that big a deal. I was like, and one of my friends said, do you realize like actually how crazy that is?
Yeah.
You know, like the impact of the business that you've had on these lives have changed, you know, you've changed the course of history. You know, it's like,
when people say it's just a job or it's just work, it's like you spend quite a lot of time at work. So if you don't enjoy it and you don't make connections and you don't, then, you know, I think you should find another job, because ultimately like what you did there, what you did is bring people together. And I really want people to enjoy their work. Otherwise that's going to come through for our sake, for the customers or for your clients, you know, where they're going to see that energy is not there. So I think it's really important.
What was lovely though was when we were at that, we celebrated winning Scottish Baker of the Year, and we had a big party, and we brought all these people that had worked back from years ago. Nice. And one of them was working in law, and she said to me, she says, do you know, all these years that I worked at Mimi's, she says, now in my job, I still take things from when I worked at Mimi's and use them in my job today. Still some of the principles and the things that I used then I still use today. And that just, it just makes me feel amazing that that would have that kind of impression on her, working for our company.
Out of interest, did she say what some of those principles might have been? That
she didn't, no, because it was one of these crazy nights where everybody was like coming at you from all angles. She never got a hugely long conversation with anyone.
We'll have to follow up and ask her.
It was a lovely thing that she, you know.
What are some of the things that you would expect people to say are principles of the business and yours, therefore?
I would say that the warmth and the hug as you walk in the door, that's really important. Just valuing our staff and people. We've invested quite a lot in our management team in terms of we come together for our management meetings, and we used to come together a whole day, but actually we've shortened it a little bit now, and we do a bit of the important figures in finance, and then we try getting an external trainer in. So we've trained our staff on sign language, on sort of autism awareness, on we had a mindfulness session with an amazing man called Edward Reed, who's actually was on Britain's Got Talent. He's a comedian, but he does mindfulness, and he's from Glasgow, so he says it's mindfulness the Glasgow way. And the group of managers in that session was from a woman in their 50s down to a man in their 20s, and every single person really enjoyed that session and took something from it. And it was he made it about mindfulness with maybe dealing with difficult customers or challenging situations. And we had such a laugh. And then like in that same meeting last time we went to Edinburgh Dungeons, and we all just went, we had a private tour and we just went all together. It was the most hilarious hour. Like it was so fun. And then we always go for a drink. And so it's just about like, yeah, you can sit down and you all know formal training, and sometimes you're just like, phew. So actually in recent years I've tried to kind of mix it up to understand that they know our values are ultimately a core family business, and we care about them and their development and their journey, and whether it be to being a lawyer or an actuary or it's to be staying in hospitality with us. There's 2 types of people in our business. There's people that want to be in hospitality. There's people that are here while they're at uni and college and studying. Both those people, as Mum said, like there's an impact there, and I think it's really important to us to invest in them so they can take things out to the world with them, hopefully. Yeah.
And talk a little bit on family business. What is it like? Because it's I can imagine it's not easy.
Yeah, family business. At the very beginning, it was very hard. Because we were all so stressed out at the time, because we just got so busy so quickly and decision making was difficult. We were all mainly on the same page. But my husband, who's 10 years older than me, Ashley's dad, it was an old school. He was in catering in the old school days when things were, a lot different, tougher, very much different to what they are today. So trying to rein him in was quite difficult at times. It doesn't work like that now. That's not how it works.
You can't do that. You can't say that.
You can't say that. You can't do that. You can't. So that was challenging. But we got there, and I mean, he understood. He understood, but it was just the way that he was taught. That's how it was in his day. Yeah. So that was quite challenging with that. But we got there in the end, and we were just all trying to sort of rub along together, and we would have days where we would all be at each other's throats. So there was one day in particular, the whole place was full. one side and the other side, absolutely full. And we were in the main bakery at the time, and we were having an absolute screaming match. I mean, I honestly, it was bizarre. We were screaming at each other, but you couldn't hear it outside because it was so noisy outside. So you couldn't hear it, thankfully. But we were like, I had myself done absolutely, because there was windows looking in. So people must have thought, what the heck's going on there? And then we just kind of calmed it down and went out and started carrying on as normal. So we had moments like that were horrendous. And it was very, very stressful. But now we're all pretty much know where we are in the business now.
I think because everyone's got the role.
Mum
and Dad is sort of semi-retired, so it's myself, my two sisters, my brother-in-law in the management team, and then we've got two Rebeccas, our brand manager and office manager. So that's our kind of senior management team, and we've all got such different things we bring to the table. And I think it's taken us a while to work out our little areas, but we've all got very different skill sets and we all do very different things. But when we come together, like just yesterday we had our management meeting, there's real energy in that room, but also then everyone can go off and do their own thing. So I think it's about finding your corner, finding what you're good at, and kind of sticking to your corner in a way, but then coming back and just checking in with things and stuff. So yeah.
And how much do you manage to kind of create boundaries between work life and then personal life? Does that happen at all? Or?
Kids helped, right?
Kids definitely helped. But also, I mean,
because there's 6 of us in the business, and then my husband Andy and my sister's husband John don't work in the business. Mm-hmm. So before we had children, we would tend to slip into work at family dinners and stuff. And then actually our 2 most precious days of the year are the 25th and the 26th of December, because that's the only 2 days that Mimi's is closed. Put out with 2020, but let's not talk about that. So that's the only 2 days. So we really don't take those for granted. And when the shops are closed, and love what I do, love Mimi's, but just taking those 2 days and we don't talk about Mimi's once and it doesn't come up and no one's texting us, and it's amazing. But I think having kids taught us that we have to.
Not speaking about.
That's what I'm saying. But we used to not be. But I think now with the kids,
we don't talk about it at family occasions now. We're very much not speaking
division.
about it.
It's important because
And you said, let's not talk about 2020. Do you think maybe...
Should we flitter over it? Yeah.
Because what happened, and maybe what are the positives that came out of it? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but, how do you make good of a bad situation, I guess?
Everyone remembers Boris's speech, and I remember I was drinking whiskey. I don't even drink whiskey, but me and Scott were drinking whiskey on the balcony, or Scott and Andy were drinking whiskey. It was, we didn't drink whiskey. Obviously we thought it was all over, but it was Mother's Day weekend, which is our busiest weekend of the year. So we realised very quickly that we had an infrastructure. We had vans, we had a website. We'd just taken on a lease of a big bakery down at Granton in the November. This was the March. So actually we could socially distance, we could work. And it was everyone was a bit unsure about food production, but food production was classed as an area that could keep going. You needed your food. So the supermarkets and takeaways and stuff. So that included us. So our normal Mother's Day afternoon tea takeaway, we would probably done about under 100. And because we saw this coming, we just kept taking orders. So we had 780 takeaway at home afternoon teas.
Wow.
And we just thought, just keep we'll do it. Just keep doing it. Because at that point we were like, there's no way we're going to be in business next week. So we need to make as much money as possible. And it was like, my son was 1, and there was just a mix of like childcare and balance and stuff. So like Gemma was in the bakery, myself, one of my brother-in-laws, my sister, like one was on childcare. It was a big, huge juggle. And then like my mum's good friend Leslie and her daughter Lauren, who don't even work in the business at that time, they came and we just smashed it.
We even had the hips player deliver for us.
We had a hips player deliver for it. That not Mother's Day, that was later. Shout out to Josh Campbell. We love Josh. Nice. His girlfriend works for us, Amy, who's amazing. And I'll never forget that weekend because everyone just came together. Cousin George, like friend Claire, everyone. It was amazing. And then we kind of thought, we've got something here. We can keep doing this. So it was just that pivoting where we just quickly went online. We delivered to people's homes, and honestly, one of the most, around the horrors that were going on, it was just joy and working with those young people that all stepped up. And Amy Harrison comes up again because her mum, I was in Mimi's Castorfin on pickup day and it was chaotic and everyone was picking up their afternoon teas and someone had been shouting at me about something, and then Amy Harrison's mum came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, no, I just started crying. And she was like, she won't even remember this if she watches this. I was like, I just thought it was incredible to spot the person behind the business. And I think a lot of people at that time, there was a lot going on and they didn't realise how we felt really privileged. You weren't getting your holiday to Portugal. You weren't getting your wedding. People were dying. There were awful things going on. That brought a lot of joy. A wee box of cakes. Like our drivers said that, opening the door to somebody with a mask on with a box of cakes, pure joy. When you actually were supposed to be your wedding day or supposed to be your 21st birthday. Like, isn't that tiny? But actually like a big, so that it brought it back to me how important the joy of cake was. Like, didn't go without. And we were so grateful for people embracing that and what that meant, and going on UK wide and going online and
well, it forced us to go into UK wide because we kept talking about it, but we'd never done it. Yeah, and it made us do it.
Made you pivot.
And remember when we first did it, we put it on, we'd advertised on Twitter and whatever, and we had that little map, didn't we? On
the postcodes.
The postcodes.
Yeah.
And then when it opened, because you kind of waited.
Oh no, the world. It was the world, wasn't it? Where people were ordering from.
Where people were ordering from. There was this little map. And then when we opened this kind of shop, as it happens online, all these little dots come down where people are buying. Oh, right. And it was absolutely crazy. It was all over the UK. Everyone was buying all these different places. And you're thinking, that is absolutely incredible. I just was fascinated by it. I thought, why? That's just crazy. Yeah. But we done so well at that point, didn't we? Online orders. It was great. Yeah.
And what about your first ever order that you put?
Oh, the first ever order when we trialled it. Yeah. That went off to Wales. We did our first trial just to see if it would work and see how the cakes travelled. So we had our first box ready to get picked up by DPD. DPD picked it up, took it off, and the person got in touch with us to say, well, I've just received my order, but it's actually wooden. We're like, what? And we're thinking, how the heck? As it turned out, we'd actually been sending back a broken tabletop that was going back to DPD and was waiting to be picked up. And the driver had picked up the wooden tabletop instead of the tray bake at the time and delivered to the customer. Yeah. So that was a wee bit odd.
That was before when we were trialling it out. We're like, this is not going to work. It was just when we were like, the idea was there, but it wasn't quite finalised.
But that was a bit worked out in the end. Well, I mean, the DPD's lot got a nice tray bake that were picking up the table.
I was going to say, how big are your tray bakes?
I know, she must be like, wow, this is some cake.
It was this tiny little box, this big tabletop. She must have thought, this is some tray baking here.
So funny.
That was a bit of a disaster, but hey, we learn.
And now online, a decent size part of your business?
It does okay. I think you have to. COVID was a very unique trading circumstances that will not be reproduced. It's hard sometimes. It took us a while to find what we're comparing to, because you're like, you couldn't compare to 2020, you can't compare to 2021. Get to 2022, you're like, oh, should we compare to 2019? But the business hasn't launched. So we see the potential, and I think there's definitely growth there. But I think what that period taught us was like, we believe in something, just go for it. We did, and it worked. The same with, we've got a concession in Archerfield in East Lothian, and it was ourselves and the ops manager there, and we've been talking about doing it. We've been there doing food festivals, putting a concession into Archerfield, which is a great space, like lots of our types of customers and families and things. And COVID hit, and they opened, they changed, they pivoted from cafe shop to just shop, and they were like, we want you in, and we just did it. So like, it's like actually like always, whether it's online or anything, just go for it. And sometimes you need that little push. And I think with UK wide, that gave us the push, and with Archerfield, and then now Archerfield's a massive part of our business, wholesale and bit of concession we're doing now. But just remembering that those things are really important, and the percentage of your business is really important, and those relationships that you gain from it, and coming straight from the bakery rather than having the overheads of a shop and that kind of thing is really important to note. So it's really important, and I think it's a massive sort of growth area for us moving forward. It's exciting.
So moving forward then, what are the plans?
It's a really tricky time for hospitality right now, not to be too much of a downer, but cost of living crisis, everything changed post 2020, and nothing's really gone back to the way it was in terms of, we went from 4 shops to 6. So like the portions changed, and certain stores are doing really well and others are struggling a little bit, and we're trying to do a bit of research and development just now. We've recently reached out to our customers online to say like, what's your favourite thing about Mimis, and we're trying to use that data to grow back those numbers in certain shops, and others we're reviewing, and there's space in the market. So physical shops as you'll know from what you see in the media, there's shops and restaurants closing all the time.
Yeah.
There is reasons for some of that.
Oh, no, exactly.
I mean,
but
especially the shore area, for
Yeah.
instance, with the traffic, the way that they've changed all the traffic down there.
Exactly.
And the parking situation down there has really completely
Yeah.
changed how people
Access.
come down.
Yeah.
The access is ridiculous now. There's no parking
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the shore.
So I think we've got to pivot and understand what that means and change things up and look at that. So we're looking at our kind of portfolio just now and where we can grow and change things and things. So yeah, it's quite.
And do you see yourselves remaining an Edinburgh-based business, or is there a Glasgow Mimis or anywhere else?
I think there's room. While we've the senior management team, as they are, most of us have small families, like young families, which what my mum had when she gave up the restaurant. So I think there's balance. And mum always opened a daytime business, and I always say anything beyond the M8 creates headaches that I just don't have the energy for right now in terms of, traffic, driving, blah, blah, blah. But I do see it. People say it all the time. And I think because we're in East Lothian with Archerfield, and you can see the kind of areas where you're working with different businesses, working with Dalkeith Country Park currently in Midlothian, and we're having conversations with other businesses like, in those areas. But I think in the future, yes. But right now, I think it's important to like ground ourselves in Edinburgh, grow the parts of the business that we can, consolidate things and stay, because I think it's good for work-life balance, which it doesn't really exist for a lot of business owners, but because of the structure and the work that's gone in, we've got that with young families. It's really important. And then actually you can see starting to create a 5 and 10 year plan where you're like, well, when my son's 15, he's not going to want to hang out with me anymore, which is sad. So what could I be doing? What can Mimi's be doing in 10 years time? And I'm starting to look at that now, just so we're like planning ahead. And I think there's exciting conversations and things to be had there.
And a question for you then, Michelle, what's it like kind of now almost handing the reins, if you like, to Ashley and your other daughters?
Well, it has been quite difficult, hasn't it? Push, and mate, push.
Yeah.
Don't look at the emails, Mum.
Yeah.
Don't look at this.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like commenting on this and commenting.
Have you
on
found
that.
it hard? Or?
Yes, I did find it hard, didn't I? I found it took a long time for you to push me.
No, but for your own health,
No,
I
don't mean push me in that direction. Actually, push me
down the stairs or something.
I mean, you had to do it. I knew that it had to happen, and I had to try and ease off a bit. And obviously, I've got other things on the go just now, and I've not been great health wise. Right. So it's probably been the best thing for me. Yeah, I think.
Well, up until a couple of years ago,
it's been hard.
We had one inbox. All our emails came to one inbox. Myself, Natalie, Gemma, Scott, Mum, and Scott, my brother-in-law, was like, "This is so random. Like, who has this?" So that was a point where Mum was like, "You can't split the emails." I'm like, "We have to split the emails.
To see everything.
We like to see everything, but we have to split the emails." Mum, like, it was hard emailing each other. We need to email each other because we have different working weeks, and we'd email each other, and they'd sit in the inbox really weird. And Mum struggled with that. She was like, "Well, you can't split the inbox." I'm like, "Mum, I'm telling you now, no other business on the planet has one inbox with all the management team in it, so it's happening." And
so
then
you would send an email to everyone else and it would land back in your own inbox?
Yeah, with labels. Like you can label on email. So we did a label Ashley, Gemma, Scott, but like the inbox was the same. And Mum, you fought back at that because you're like, "No, I have to." And I was like, "Mum, seriously, go ask around. Nobody has that. It's like, it doesn't exist as a thing." But it was just the way the business evolved. Yeah, you were not. She would message me, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" I'm like, "Mum, leave me alone. Like, I'm getting there. I'm working on it." Like there was an event or something. Like, But that was a big turning point, I think. And you did it, and
I'm much more used to it now.
It's a better. Mum deserves to retire. Like she put a lot into the business, and like we're saying in a positive way, like leave us to it. We've got this. Like we'll look after you. Yeah, thanks.
I know you.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
you're a powerhouse.
Oh, we try.
We ask all our guests, what are your guiding principles in business?
You want to go back? You go. Me go. It has to be follow your gut. Like that's number one. Hire on personality, invest in your staff, look after your people, whether it's customers or staff, and then go with your gut. Because as I said, I think your gut always does you well, and you come back to it. And if you've got a feeling if something's going to work, then roll with it. I think that's important. I think I stole yours. Is that not the same as you? You taught me that. Yeah.
Look at that.
And do your homework as well in business,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just go into business without actually doing their homework and what they're actually opening and what their client base or customer base is in the area. There's lots to take in before you actually open a business to know where you are and what you're doing. Look at your branding right at the beginning and how you're going to push that business forward, and don't just open and just hope for the best. put some work into it.
Hey, you raise a good point which we haven't asked about. Obviously, you and your husband spent a bit of time doing the research before opening the first Mimis. Right? But where does the name come from?
Yeah.
I didn't ask that.
Well, we kind of spent a wee while trying to come up with a name, and then eventually we decided I'm Michelle and it's Michael, my husband. Yeah. So we decided me, Michael, Michelle, the two.
It's obvious now.
But Mum gets Mimi now. People think Mum's name is Mimi, but her name's Michelle. But
yeah, I get called Mimi.
Mimi's grandmother in America, and a lot of people call their grandmother Mimi. So it's been really sweet to see that journey. There's a lady that comes in the show. Her daughter's called Mimi. So she spends every birthday there, and then people want to send Mimis. Like they come from America, I was give them a sticker, and they're like, "My Mimi," so it's a funny word that's kind of evolved and things. But yeah. It's sweet.
We've obviously had this box sitting there, and I think it would be worthwhile opening it and having a wee look. And you can talk us through some of what's even there.
Yeah, go for it.
Right, Michelle.
First of all, the box is great, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this is original branding right from the very beginning.
It's not changed.
It's never changed. Yeah, we put a lot of work into that.
So, sorry, Mimis. Is it Michelle first and then Michael?
Always.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, always, yes.
Please.
Yeah. So we have...
Oh, look at that.
An array of cakes here. So my particular favourite, Scottish Rocky Road here.
Okay, and again, Scottish
Rocky Road as
it's
all Scottish. It's got Tunnock's wafers in, Scottish shortbread on top.
Tunnock's tea cakes instead of marshmallows.
Yeah. So, and it's all Belgian chocolate.
This is our cake of the month. So we have our core range, which doesn't change that very often because people got their favourites, but we try to incorporate specials every month because people like to see it. So that's a sort of Biscoff crunch with caramel and Biscoff topping, and then everything. We've got a vegan brownie there and a made without gluten brownie. So yeah, trying to capture something for everyone.
A popular one's a Jammy Dodger slice.
Oh, that's a favourite.
That's my wife's favourite.
Yes, everyone's favourite.
And what's this then? Is that a carrot?
That's
cake
a carrot
cupcake.
Carrot cupcake. Yeah.
And that's our ultimate chocolate cupcake. So you can dig into them now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we beauty.
Well, Michelle and Ashley, thank you so much for coming on, sharing a bit of your story, and we'll tuck into those now.
Yeah.
And we wish you all the luck in the future.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
You can come back anytime.
Thank you.